For all of you, I say about Josh Hammer and Mark Levin and Laura Loomer, them. Them. Deeply, seriously, get them the out of our country.
Good afternoon, Slimes. Thank you for coming to the show. Today we're going to be showing a clip of Nick where he does a masterclass on controlled opposition, how so much media in the U.S., it is controlled by these foreigners, is controlled by non-Americans whose entire loyalties lie outside, and they want to dress it up in this entire spiel, in this, grr, I'm a manly man, I wear flannels. But realistically, there's a reason why politicians didn't grow beards 50 years ago, and now suddenly everyone wants to grow a beard. This is what's marketable, and they are trying to sell something to you, and you need to be aware of that as you watch media. Here's Nick getting into it.
I saw this tweet today from Matt Walsh, which I really think needs to be discussed. And I'm on my timeline today, and I see Matt Walsh, who you know from Daily Wire. And as you know, Matt Walsh is Catholic. He's white. He's not Jewish, but he works at Daily Wire for Ben Shapiro. And as we now know, since Candace departed Daily Wire, Candace Owens that is, it is basically a condition of working for Daily Wire that you are not against Israel. You can't talk about Israel too much. You can't oppose Israel. You cannot talk too much or oppose Israel's influence in America. It seems the most you can say at Daily Wire about Israel is that you're not an Israeli. To the extent that you can be critical of Israel, you can say things like, I am against all foreign aid. I am against all foreign wars. I only like America. I'm not an Israeli. That's about the extent of it. Go any further than that, you're going to get fired. You're going to lose your job. You're going to run into problems. And Matt Walsh, for that reason, he's known as basically being an ideological white advocate or something like this. It seems that the only issues he talks about are the race relations between whites and everybody else. Blacks, Indians, Hispanics, Asians, immigrants, but never talking about the race relations between Jews and whites or Jews and everybody else. And I find that to be pretty curious. I think it's pretty obvious what's going on there in light of what we know about Daily Wire. And I wanted to talk about one thing he said in particular today on Twitter, which I think maybe shines a light on this. Today on Twitter, Matt Walsh posted this. He said, quote, "The mayor of Dearborn, Michigan is Abdullah Hammoud. The guy running against him in the mayoral race is Nagi Al-Hamdagi. The mayor's chief of staff is Zanib A. Hussein. The police chief is Issa Shaheen. He oversees the commander of the patrol division, Madhu Bazi. The public health director is Ali Abazid. Don't forget city council members Kamal Al-Sawafi and Mustafa Hammoud." Question, he says, is this what our founding fathers had in mind? That's a question that the residents of Dearborn can consider as they awake at 5:30 a.m. to the Muslim call to prayer blasted over the loudspeakers by the local mosque. They can keep thinking about it as they get in their cars and drive to work down Osama Siblani Street. Is this America? If the entire country resembles Dearborn in 50 years, in what sense will America still exist? And, I see this tweet, and of course, I directionally agree with the sentiment. And the sentiment is, of course, broadly speaking, that America is radically changing because of immigration, specifically non-white immigration. Non-white immigration from the Middle East, Latin America, and Asia is rendering America unrecognizable because there are so many immigrants coming in such a short amount of time, and they form ethnic enclaves, and they basically then graft their old country onto our country. And if this process continues ad infinitum, it's a valid question. Will all of America look like a patchwork of ethnic enclaves? Muslims, Indians, Chinese, Latin Americans. And then in what sense will America be the same country as it once was? Valid question, directionally correct. Here's the issue, though, that I take with it. In the first place, is America being invaded by Muslims? Europe is being invaded by Muslims, no doubt. The United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy. Most of the migrants pouring into these European countries are sub-Saharan Africans from Africa and Muslim Arabs from the Middle East. And so to the extent that you have a foreign-born or non-white population in Europe, mostly these are African sub-Saharan blacks and Arab, Muslim, North African, and Middle Easterners. But that's not really the case in the United States. In the United States, it's mostly Hispanics from the Northern Triangle of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. It's Venezuelans. It's people from South and Central America. and it's Indians and Chinese that are coming in on worker visas. It's really not so much Muslims. And, case in point, Dearborn, Michigan is not a huge city to the extent that you have Somalis in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is not one of the bigger cities. But cities like Chicago, it's a third Mexican. Cities like LA, I think it's mostly Mexican at this point. Cities like Miami, New York, significant Hispanic, Asian populations. So why always attacking Muslims then? Well, Glenn Greenwald responded, and it's sort of interesting. I did his show tonight, but I saw this on Twitter today. Glenn replied to Matt Walsh's tweet and sort of said the same thing. He said, people who try to convince Americans that the primary threat to their lives is Muslims are almost always, one, those eager to convince Americans they have the same enemies as Israel and must thus unite with Israel in its wars, or two, those who work for people with that agenda. So either people like Ben Shapiro or people that work for Ben Shapiro, people like Matt Walsh. And it only makes common sense. The Jews in America want America to fight Israel's wars against Iranians, against Hamas, against the Houthis, against Hezbollah. But Americans don't care about Muslims. Hamas is not a threat to America. Iran is not a threat to America. So what you see ceaselessly on Zionist-controlled Fox News, on Jewish-controlled Daily Wire, on Jewish-controlled Blaze, etc., is the endless fear-mongering about Sharia law and Muslims. Do we want America to have Sharia law? No. Do we want America to be Muslim? No. But are they a significant immigrant group? Not really. More so in Europe, less so here. And is the real reason they're pushing that line, is it because they really present a clear and present danger to taking over America? Or is it because that sort of thinking makes us sympathetic to Israel's wars against Muslims and Arabs? Matt Walsh replies to Glenn Greenwald. He says, "You got me, Glenn. I'm opposed to building an Islamic state in the middle of the American heartland because of my love for Israel. It couldn't just be that I'm concerned about my own country. Your Israel fetish has rotted your brain, Glenn. You're obsessed with Israel, Glenn." Now, I've got a really big problem with this. I've got a really big problem with all of that. Because what you're starting to see, and what you've been seeing for the past couple of years, is that people like Matt Walsh, and even people like Charlie Kirk until the day that he died, people like Steve Saylor, many of the Bronze Age pervert crowd, these people like Raw Egg Nationalist, Lomez, etc., they are really ramping up the nativist rhetoric to sort of compensate for the fact that they will never criticize Israel or the Jews. And let's think about this in terms of systems here. When we talk about whites and Muslims, whites and blacks, whites and Hispanics, we're talking about identity politics. We're talking about the politics of immutable, essential identities. What does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to be white? What does it mean to be an immigrant? This is the politics of identity. And it's the politics of these immutable, essential characteristics like race, religion, whether we're native or foreign born, what language we speak, all the things that come with being a white American versus a non-white foreigner. And if that's the way we're thinking about politics, and I think that's the way we all are thinking about politics, why then does that never extend to Jews for somebody like Matt Walsh? In other words, we can talk about Muslims bringing Sharia law, and we can all agree that as white Americans, that's undesirable. And we could talk about how Muslims are taking up too much space and too much power in certain cities. Do we want a city to be all Muslim? Do we want to live in a city with a Muslim mayor, health commissioner, police commissioner? The signs are in Arabic script? Of course not. That's the relation between white and Muslim people in America because of mass migration. But why then do the same people that are so eager and so vocal, so incendiary, these people that are the biggest culture warriors, the toughest talkers about Muslims or blacks or immigrants or illegals or Hispanics or Indians, why do those people never talk about Jews? Why do they never talk about the race relations between whites and Jews or Jews and everybody else? In other words, you're willing to say that the mayor of Dearborn is Muslim and the municipal government of Dearborn is too Muslim. But how come you never talk about how America's government is too Jewish? Why are you willing to talk about one but not the other? You talk about our black crime problem. You talk about the Muslim Dearborn problem. You talk about the Hispanic illegal immigrant problem. And by the way, those are all problems. That's all legitimate. But you never talk about the Jewish running media, academia, Hollywood, government, finance problem. Why not? You're willing to list all the Muslim sounding names and their call to prayer in Dearborn. Why don't you say the same thing about all the Jews in Surfside, Florida? Or how about all the Jews in Brooklyn, New York? Or how about all the Hasidic Jews that have basically created colonies in New Jersey, all over New York, in LA, in South Florida? How about, forgive me, how about all the Jewish names in Hollywood, in the financial industry? How about the 5 out of 8 Ivy League universities that have Jewish presidents? How about the endless talk about the Holocaust and playing the shofar and hearing the Torah and the Talmud and all this? We never hear that from Matt Walsh. We never hear that from all these conservatives. Why not? And I'm just getting really sick and tired of conservatives that pretend to be, and what they're doing is compensating, pretending to be based by punching down against black people with no agency, illegal immigrants with no legal standing, Muslims who are foreign in every sense of the word, but are absolutely terrified and cowardly when it comes to confronting Jewish power. And that would be punching up. And it's not to say that we don't have a problem with black crime. It's not to say that we don't have a problem with illegal Hispanics or others for that matter. It's not to say we don't have a problem with Indians on work visas. It's not to say we don't have a problem with this Muslim invasion of certain specific communities and townships. But when you look at the overarching problem, when you look at the overarching foreign influence in America, it's not coming from any of these localized groups. It's not coming from any of these low agency third world groups. It's coming from the transnational Jewish syndicate, which is really in the big leagues. And so, for somebody like Matt Walsh, hey man, just answer the question. I tweeted at him today. You're willing to say all the Muslim names in Dearborn. On some level, who gives a fuck? It's Dearborn, Michigan. Jews run America. Hello? And I'm not saying, by the way, before anybody jumps in, I'm not saying I'm glad that Dearborn, Michigan is a Muslim colony. I'm not happy about that. But it's Dearborn, Michigan. Yes, Dearborn, Michigan is a colony of Muslims. Washington, D.C., New York City, Los Angeles, Miami are colonies of the Jews. Are you going to talk about that? Because unless and until you're willing or able to talk about all those Jewish names, all those foreign-sounding names with their foreign religion, their foreign desert religion and culture, then don't try to pretend like you're some sort of pro-white advocate. Don't pretend like you're brave or courageous or some kind of culture war, some kind of patriot. You're not a patriot. You are an accommodationist. You work for Ben Shapiro. And by the way, this is the same guy who three weeks ago said, we just need to bring the whole right wing together. We need to unite the right. Unite the right against what? Dearborn, Michigan's mayor? How about uniting the right against the Jewish mothership controlling America? Then we can deal with Dearborn. Then we can deal with Minneapolis. Why don't we start with the ADL, AIPAC, B'nai B'rith, Hillel, the Israeli Foreign Ministry, the U.S. State Department? Why don't we start there? BlackRock, Blackstone. Why don't we start with the actual institutions that have power, which are being influenced by a foreign country or foreign influence? So I saw that tweet today, and it is just another reminder that it is as important what someone does not say equally as much as what they are saying. So someone like Matt Walsh goes on Twitter naming the Muslim mayor of Dearborn. Hey, good stuff, Matt. When are you going to talk about the Jewish mayor of America? Hello, his name is Prime Minister Netanyahu. And it never ceases to amaze me, these kind of gruff, middle-aged white guys, and yes, I'm calling out my fellow white men. It never ceases to amaze me, these gruff, middle-aged white guys with beards, drinking their Black Rifle coffee, wearing their flannel shirts, rolling up their sleeves. They got so much to say about the blacks, about the Muslims, about the immigrants. They will never say boo about the Jews. And that's just cowardly, as far as I'm concerned. That's just cowardly and sad. Matt Walsh's show every single day is a screed. I don't think that's hyperbolic to say. I watch his show. Every day it's a screed. Foreigners, Somalis, Arabs, illegals, savages, animals. I want heads on pikes, communists, etc. That's his show every day. Every day. It's rage porn. It's invective. And once again, don't get me wrong, agree on most of it. But who is the author of most of it? Who is the author of communism, Matt? Who is the author of transgenderism? Who is the author of the melting pot? Who is the author of the open society of America? Who is the author of these things? Will you answer that question on your show? Day in, day out, screed against these browns and blacks and this, that, and the other. And look, and I get it. But that's sort of low-hanging fruit. Let's talk about the big picture here. Or are we afraid to do that because of who's down the hall and to the left in the big chair in the executive suite? Well, and what's ironic even about that, Ben Shapiro isn't even down there in Nashville. It's too good for Nashville. He's in South Florida with his homeboys. Because you would say something like, hey, Matt Walsh, maybe before you criticize Israel, why don't you walk down the hall and clear it with your boss? But Shapiro's not even in the same office building. All the Daily Wire staff are in Nashville. Shapiro's in South Florida in the Jewish colony. If that doesn't say it all, I mean. So anyway, I saw that tweet. This was my reply. I said, quote, you constantly talk about how cities like Dearborn or Minneapolis are run by Muslims, which is a problem. Why don't you ever talk about government, academia, media, Hollywood, finance being run by Jews? Did the founding fathers intend on that? Did they intend on people with Steen and Berg and Witz? Were those people supposed to be running the banks, the news, the government, the State Department? I don't think so. Get real. Get a grip, man. You're a white Catholic. Start acting like it. Don't be such a coward. And listen, and Matt Walsh, when he is ready to just talk about the real issue, I will shake his hand. I will apologize. I will be right there with him. But until that day comes, I have to call you out. It's not personal. I don't hate you. I don't even think he's a bad guy, but he is being a coward. You are being a coward. I will hear no more chest beating, chest thumping by white men who are so cowardly they won't talk about who is really taking our sovereignty from us. Don't you notice it's always these white men, and I'm going to vilify him in the other direction for a moment, pardon me. It's all these white men beating their chest. Our civilization, explorers, pioneers, conquerors, these brown people could never. Oh, really, tough white man? Oh, really, big white man? My ancestor? The founding fathers would never. What do you think the founding fathers would say about you working for Ben Shapiro, huh? What do you think George Washington, the hero, the titan, what do you think George Washington, or any of them for that matter, would think about you working for Ben Shapiro? What do you think about America going to war for Israel? What do you think they would say about Jews running the Ivy Leagues, Jews running the media, Jews running our Congress, bribing our politicians, controlling the National Security Council, the State Department, the Pentagon? The money, the printing of the money. What do you think they would say about that? What do you think they would say about you? Do not even say founding fathers. You don't have the right. You have no right. Keep their names out of your mouth, Matt Walsh. That name, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, keep those names out of your mouth as long as you're working for Ben Shapiro, you traitor. We need to unite against the left. No, pal. We need to unite as Americans for our sovereignty and independence. It ain't a difference of opinion. It's black and white, clear as crystal. That is the predicament that we're in. We are occupied, and it ain't by Muslims. It's by Jews, obviously. And listen, they need to hear that from their right wing. They need to hear that from their right flank. I appreciate Glenn Greenwald and Michael Tracy giving these guys a hard time. They need to hear it from someone on their right. I'm not pro-immigration. I'm not pro any of this stuff. So it's for your own good. It's for your own damn kids, Matt. I cannot stand it. And I saw this clip the other day from Josh Hammer and Mark Levin. These people. Like, deeply, seriously, all real Americans, if you are a real American, if you were born in this country, I don't even care who you are, what you are, if you are a real American that loves this country, you have generations in this country, your family or you fought for this flag, fought for the Constitution, fought for our church, fought for our civilization. For all of you, I say about Josh Hammer and Mark Levin and Laura Loomer, them. Deeply, seriously, get them the out of our country. I saw Josh Hammer and Mark Levin. Now that Charlie Kirk was killed, they got together on their show where they're advocating for Netanyahu and war with Iran and more dead Americans, more dead young white men for Israel. I saw them get together on their show and they said, well, one concern we have about the death of Charlie Kirk is that who is going to keep the gate and prevent filth like Nick Fuentes from taking over? Josh Hammer said, who's going to prevent anti-Semitic filth like Nick Fuentes from taking over? You're the filth. Newsflash, buddy. Hey, Josh Hammer, Mark Levin, you're the filth. You are scum. You are traitors. You do not belong here. You are not American. You're not home. Remember that. Never forget that. You want to talk about this land was promised to us 2,000 years? You ain't there. You're not home. Never forget that. You get a little too comfortable. You're feeling a little too comfortable here talking like that about Americans. This is Josh Hammer, the same guy that said Europeans have Jew hatred in their DNA. That's what Josh Hammer thinks of us. He says Europeans have Jew hatred in their DNA. We're supposed to go and fight their wars, though, and love them and love their country and love everything they're about. They're filth. They're Jew-hating filth. You're filth, pal. You are an alien. You ain't home. Don't forget that for 1 second. It drives me crazy. And whatever. You know, on some level, that's who they are. That's what they've always been. And, you know, I think they should be treated with dignity and they should have rights and everything like that. They should not be allowed to have the privileges to have power over Americans at all. But to the extent that it's sort of like the scorpion and the frog, that's what they do. That's what they're going to do. That's what they've always done. They're looking out for themselves. Josh Hammer, Mark Levin, Laura Loomer, they're looking out for themselves. And on some level, you can't really blame them. They're doing what they always do for their own benefit, to advance their own interest, to take their own side. Can you hate them for taking their own side? If you were a Jew and you enjoyed the power that they have and you had the history that they had, I mean, maybe you'd act the same way. What I cannot countenance is a white Catholic American man signing up to work for them. That's what I can't abide. Josh Hammer, Mark Levin, Laura Loomer, they do what they do. They're doing their thing. But Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles are working for them? You got Christian white men working on their behalf? That's the part that, that's the real problem. That's a deep treachery. And no, we can't actually table that topic. You know, Matt Walsh wants to say, let's just table that and let's just get together and we'll defer that disagreement to another day. It's like, you don't understand. You work for Ben Shapiro. We're never going to be able to unite on that basis. Okay? You work for an operative of a foreign government. Ben Shapiro goes live every day to advocate for dead white Americans for his country, and he hates us. You understand that? I'd almost prefer communist. I'd almost prefer a liberal. Ben Shapiro goes live every single day to say, more dead white Americans for Israel. And they hate us anyway. They think we're Jew haters in our bones because we're so jealous of them. That's what they think about us. They hate us and they want us to die for them anyway. And you work for them. Shapiro is the worst of all of them. He is the worst scum-sucking traitor out of all of them. Him, Mark Levin, Josh Hammer, they are the worst. And you work for them against your own people. And you think that if they give you a platform to spew invective against other aliens, that maybe you're going to have it better off? You ain't American, pal. You're not American. You had American colonists that were working for the British. At least the British were white and Christian. You're worse. At least the loyalists to the British crown when America was founded, hey, at least it was a Christian white monarchy. You're loyal to some Antichrist state in the Middle East. They hate us. You're worse than Benedict Arnold. You're worse. You're on the level of like Judas. Anyway.
All right, what an excellent masterclass by Nick, showing how these people, they have this foreign allegiance and they cannot speak the truth on these issues. Why doesn't Matt Walsh talk about these issues, huh? He advertises himself as this pro-America first guy, as this person who's very proud of his country, proud of his people. He speaks down and punches down at other minority groups. But why can't he talk about the influence that a certain Middle Eastern country has on us? You got to look at who's putting the bread on the table, who's paying his bills. And that's really what it comes down to. The saddest part about it is this is a biblical narrative. This is almost straight out of the Bible when you think about Jacob and Esau, right? He sells his birthright, except it's even worse. He sells his children's birthright for a bowl of soup. In this sense, almost literally, because who pays his bills? Who gives him the housing? Who gives him the bowl of soup, the food? Ben Shapiro. So yeah, excellent video, another excellent takedown. And yeah, if you like this Nick content, make sure to subscribe. We're almost about to hit 500 subscribers. Very excited for that number. Maybe I do a special video. Maybe I don't, you know? It's my life. I do with it what I will. Thanks for watching. Christ is King. Have a great night.
A true, true friend helps a friend in need. A friend will be there to help them see. A true, true friend helps a friend in need to see the light that shines from a true, true friend. Verity needs your help. She's trying hard, doing what she can.
Would you try? Just give it a chance. You might find that you'll start to understand.
A true, true friend helps a friend in need. A friend will be there to help them see. A true, true friend helps a friend in need to see the light that shines from a true, true friend.